Before you hit send on your agency capabilities deck, take a pause. Because if your deck is getting ignored, it probably isn't because of your design, your case studies, or even your services. It's actually probably because you don't know who you're specifically talking to. Your capabilities deck isn't about what you want to say, it's about what your buyer on the other end needs to hear in order to make a purchasing decision. But you need to know who your buyer is. It's like all of the ads on Instagram that we're constantly inundated with. You're scrolling by, all these ads are flying by, and then all of a sudden one catches your eye. It stops your scroll. The reason why is because it said something that hit you that was specific to you. That's what you want to achieve with your capabilities deck. When you laser in on the right decision maker and what they want to hear, that's when your deck is going to start closing deals. So in this video, I'll show you how to create a capabilities deck that speaks directly to your one buyer, that one person who can say yes to hiring you, and how to make them feel like your agency is the only option. So a little bit about me. I'm Lindsay Christian. I run a six-figure agency dedicated exclusively to creating capabilities decks that close. But I actually didn't start on the agency side. I started on the brand side and was getting constantly pitched by agencies, constantly seeing capabilities decks. And it dawned on me that none of these decks were differentiated. None of them had what I needed in there to really make a buying decision and to understand which agency would perform best for the brand that I was working with and which one would really deliver on the results. So that frustration essentially is what led me to build SoBlue and to create an agency that now focuses exclusively on helping marketing agencies build strong, compelling capabilities decks so that whoever they're pitching on the other side can really make an informed buying decision and can understand why their agency is the obvious choice. So here's the truth. Your deck should answer one question for the person on the other side of that pitch. And that question is, why should I trust you with my budget, my goals, and my reputation? If your deck doesn't answer that question for them, you're wasting time. You need to figure out who that one person is, the one person with the buying power and the decision-making authority to hire your agency for the job. And you need to create the deck for them. Not their assistant, not their junior team member, nobody else but that one specific person. Because if you pitch for the wrong person or create a deck that's for the wrong person, your deck is going to land flat. A great meeting can turn into silence and crickets and no follow-up, or you're ending up in long sales cycles or pointless feedback loops. But when you strike hot with the right person and the right message, it can really be a game changer for your pitch and for your agency overall. So the first piece of the puzzle is to know your who. So for example, who are you actually selling to? Is it a founder, a CMO, a brand manager? You need to pick one. And they care about different things. So there's a ton of specificity in this. For example, founders might care about growth and big picture momentum versus a CMO who might be more focused on ROI and performance versus, say, a brand manager who's going to care a lot more about flawless execution and consistency. So you definitely want to hone in on specifically who you're pitching. That's obviously not an exhaustive list. And if you have, a different set of people that you pitch to or a few different types of prospects, it might even make sense to customize one deck per prospect. But in general, you want to kind of go deep on that person, really understand them, what they care about, and what's going to move the needle for them in order for them to make a hiring decision and to understand that your agency is the must hire. And next, you want to speak to their pain points. So, once you know who you're targeting, go deep on their pain. What's the business problem that's keeping them up at night, specifically them in their role? Is it a low number of leads? Is it declining brand relevance? Is it a launch that didn't have good sales? Again, each role is different. Each person is different. And this is where you can prepare for the pitch by doing research to really understand who that person is, what that role typically, cares about, even maybe looking at job descriptions for that role to understand how they're being measured internally at their company or the brand that they're working with, and then begin to customize that pitch to really attack those pain points and to target them so that they understand by working with your agency, they're going to be solving a lot of the problems that, like I said, are keeping them up at night. So, your deck should immediately say, we see your problem. We solved it before. You should have case studies that show results that speak to solving those specific problems that that person cares about. And, when your slides reflect that exact frustration that they're having, they'll feel like your agency just gets it and they'll be much more inclined to hire you and bring you on, especially above other competitors that might be more generalist or nebulous when it comes to solving those specific problems that they care about. And so I mentioned another big thing is you just want to show the result that they want. So this is where most decks I see go wrong. They talk about what the agency did or what you did. And, we made this video, we ran this campaign, but buyers want to know what the actual things that you did actually accomplish for the client that you were working for at the time. So, did your campaign cut their cost per lead in half? Did your video content 2x their engagement? Or, did the rebrand lead to 5 new clients in 30 days? So it's not just about what you did, it's about the results you got. You really want to lead with the outcome. And essentially that's what's going to sell, and that's what's going to compel them to hire your agency. They see the results you've gotten and they want the results for themselves. So again, lead with the outcome, lead with the results that you were able to get, not just the tactics that you use in order to get them. And next, you really want to speak their language. So, if you're pitching a marketing director, talk metrics. If you're pitching a founder, talk outcomes and risk. So, you need to use the vocabulary of your buyer. I've seen tons of great videos, where you can go online or use AI or ChatGPT to kind of search online forums, Quora, Reddit, LinkedIn, to really understand the verbiage and the lingo that people are using and that, these different people you could be pitching are using. But it's important to speak in their vocabulary. That's just going to take your pitch up a level, set you apart, and really, again, make them feel like you get it in terms of what you're pitching and what you're saying. So using their vocabulary is great. It's not just about sounding smart. It's about making sure that your agency is relevant and speaks their language. And if they see themselves in your visuals, in your case studies, in your results, in your language, again, that's just going to make your overall pitch even more compelling. And these are the small tweaks and the little refinements you can make that really will set your agency apart and will set your pitch deck apart. So that's why it's super important. Obviously you start with understanding the person, and now we're kind of getting all the way into the nitty gritty of really understanding how they talk, how they describe their problems, how they speak about the different metrics and issues, that they care about. If it's cost per lead, maybe they're saying CPL. So, that's one small example, but really dive deep into how they talk, what they care about, how they reference metrics, what KPIs are important to them, and then use those when you're crafting your capabilities deck so that it's speaking directly to them. And then this is a big one I see agency owners miss out on, and this is about designing for the yes. And I say this on a ton of my other videos, a capabilities deck, the purpose of it is to guide the prospect, through a strategic journey to get them to a yes. And so the best capabilities decks really remove any reason why a prospect would say no. You need to, again, know the specific person, know what they're looking for, know what they're not looking for, and you really want to design and guide them towards that yes. So, this means anticipating questions like, how long will it take? What does it cost? What kind of results can I expect? Why should I hire you over the competition? Those are kind of the generic questions that anybody on the other side of a pitch might be asking. But then you want to take it a level deeper and, again, go into the mindset of that specific person that you're pitching and try to address any questions that they might specifically have. So for example, a founder might be asking, how will this help us grow faster? Is this going to move the needle in the next 90 days? Maybe they're trying to raise money and they're trying to, get a nice punch of growth so that as they go into investor meetings, they can show upward momentum. Or, can this scale as we grow? Or does this give us a competitive edge? So those are some founder questions that they might ask if you're pitching founders versus like a CMO might be asking, what is the ROI on this investment? Do you have proof that this works? How will we measure success? Will this integrate with our current or existing campaign? So diving deep, thinking through those questions, also some brand manager questions, just so you guys have an example, will this stay on brand across different channels? Can you match our tone, and visual identity? Who would manage the day-to-day execution? Have you worked with brands like ours before? So again, different roles have different questions, but what you want to do is build your slides and craft your pitch to answer all these questions. So first, identify who that person is, identify what they care about, understand how they talk about what they care about, and then understand any questions they might have that can either help push the pitch forward or hold it back. And then you want to address those in each slide, in your capabilities deck, in the copy, in the positioning, in the visuals. You want to make sure you're answering those questions before they're even asked. And the easier you make it for this specific buyer to say yes, it's simple, the more often they will. So, again, we're layering on all these different elements that just make your pitch a lot more refined, a lot more honed in on that one person that you're typically talking to. And so here's the mindset shift I like to go through with all of my clients. Essentially, your capabilities deck is a decision-making tool. The purpose of it is to give the prospect on the other end of the pitch everything that they need in order to make a decision about hiring your agency. So you need to really think through, again, who is that person? What do they care about? What questions will will they have? What do I need to answer in order to make sure that they can make a solid decision about hiring my agency over all the other competition that's pitching them? And if you want help with what to put in your deck, slide order, how to kind of craft these slides, check out this video. I walk you through slide by slide what to put on each and every page in your deck so that it's a really compelling pitch. And again, if you want our help or you want to talk to me or my team, book a call. There's a link down below in the bio. We live and breathe decks. We're happy to help you identify who is, who your specific target buyer is, and then help you dive deep into what they care about, what they need to see, some of the questions that they might have. We've designed so many decks, so we know a lot of these common, typical people in different brands and organizations that are being pitched and what they care about, and happy to share that insight with you. We love to help. But yeah, definitely check out this video or book a call with my team, link down below in the bio. We'd love to chat.